This is an overview video covering XUL's popular talent builds in patch 17 released on March 29th, 2016. I'm Tempo Goku and this is part of my ongoing series covering melee specialist assassins. So what are his most popular talent choices? Well, XUL is a specialist that excels in pushing lanes and has some great utility. The talents I will be going through are the ones which bring the most out of XUL and his playstyle. For level 1, Shade. This current meta uses a lot of melee-focused auto-attackers, and Shade allows to dodge all that auto-attack damage, and on top of that, having a 30% shield that absorbs ability damage, which can help if you're getting ganked. You will also be running into less range since the recent patches brought many nerfs to multiple range assassins. Also, Shade is a strong counter to the top 2 assassins, which currently are Thrall and Greymane, which are widely picked among both Hero League and competitive, to the point where they're worthy of bans. For level 4, Jailers. The use you get out of Jailers is not only limited to some small, minor single target damage, it can also absorb skill shots, which can be very annoying for heroes such as Lane Main or Jaina, because of Jaina's Frostbolt or all of Lane Main's abilities. For level 7, Rasmus Blessing. A lot of maps have constant lanes nearby, so whenever you're clearing a lane, you're basically regenning as if you're constantly under the effect of the healing well, which can be absurdly strong since there aren't any other heroes who can get a benefit just for standing in the lane, while the lane pushes itself out due to your trait. Or another example is if an objective is about to begin, you can clear one lane, which is in the end is beneficial towards your team because the enemy team will be missing experience. For level 10, Poison Nova. Now in the end, both Skeletal Mages and Poison Nova are a 50-50. In competitive, they both have their uses when it comes to running certain types of comps, but for now I'm sticking with Poison Nova, since in the end it's the most popular talent. This talent absolutely demolishes heavy focused melee teams, or against a team that is lacking heals such as a team with Uther or a solo Tyrande Tassadar. It does a great amount of burst damage if you're being surrounded by the enemy team or the enemy team is collapsing on you. A lot of the time it brings out a lot of pressure in an instant, since teams will either have to make a decision to go through it or just kite back, in which your team can easily counter engage, which can very well turn around a team fight. For level 13, Giant's Curse. Now this talent is very good in a lot of situations. The reason people choose this talent in competitive is because of XUL's large range on his ability Curse Strikes. In the end, this just gives Curse Strikes a damage boost. And since his damage has been nerfed in previous patches, it helps killing big targets such as Muradin or Stitches. For level 16, Amplified Damage. A lot of people use this talent in competitive since it will always trigger the vulnerability effect whether or not the ability actually lands, which can be good for baiting out spells and then immediately following up with another stun or just flat out catching opponents. In the end, this talent is more of a utility type for your team. For level 20, Bone Spear. Now, a lot of these talents at level 20 are very good, but I'm sticking with Bone Spear, since it's a good talent and the rest are optional, depending on what situation you're in. Bone Spear is basically another ability, but having a total of 6 active abilities is very strong. It creates a lot of utility for the hero, and basically makes it impossible for the enemy team to capture a tribute or try to trade damage by poking each other with their abilities. Another build is called Skeleton build. Everything that involves in skeletons. So at level 1, Shade, 4, Targul's Essence, 7, Rasmus Blessing, 10, Skeletal Mages or Poison Nova, 13, Corpse Explosion, 16, Skeleton Mastery, and 20, they're pretty much all viable at level 20. Now this build is used a lot in competitive, especially talents 4, 7, 13, and 16, and are abused in such maps as Dragonshire, Tomb of the Spider Queen, and Towers of Doom. Since you are constantly clearing lanes and always close enough to a lane to get the full effect from your talents, you will be constantly pushing lanes at the rate that most specialists wish they can do. This talent build is used a lot in competitive because it creates a constant struggle for the enemy team to deal with whatever lane XUL is clearing. Some optional talents are, at level 1, Backlash. This talent is used quite a bit in Hero League, but not much in competitive, since you're guaranteed to do 15% damage to the enemy team and can do quite a lot of damage if you're able to land the ability against multiple targets. Combining this with Poison Nova can deal a devastating combo, but you do lose a lot of survivability. At level 7, Weaken. This talent is somewhat used in competitive for the purpose of disrupting heavy auto attackers. It used to be 50% attack speed reduction, but then got reduced to 40%. Still a very strong talent if you're facing against an Illidan, Greymane, or a Vala, and since Curse Strikes has a large range, it's very easy to land a hit on them. Level 7, Harvest Vitality. This talent isn't the most popular talent, but it's got some nice, neat effects, especially using it with Tassadars, who has the talent Leeching Plasma at level 4. Your Cursed Strikes will be healing for quite a lot if you're hitting the majority of the enemy team, which can be really handy in certain situations if you had a bad start to the fight. Level 10, Skeletal Mages. Now, interestingly enough, this talent is versatile. It can be used to lock down targets or be used as an engage or a disengage. Since it has a large range and it's fairly easy to land, this ability is more utility than anything, since it does little to no damage, but since it acts as a cheap version of Tassadar's Force Wall, it can be useful in certain scenarios. This talent is used in competitive since it has a large range and you're guaranteed to disrupt the enemy team long enough for your team to collapse. Level 13, Decrepify, and 16, Flowing Wounds. These talents go together similar to Skeleton build, but the reason these talents aren't so popular is that other talents are more optimal for your team, while these talents only affect yourself. For example, these talents can be good in maps like Battlefield of Eternity, since most of the time you know where the enemy team is positioned and you can guarantee a hit with Zul's Q, which can be set up for a follow-up since the slow is fairly big in catching out opponents. Level 20, Mortal Wound and Bone Spear. These talents have their uses in certain scenarios and are usually picked depending on what the enemy team has chosen as their healers. For example, if the enemy team has low healing, you can get much more use out of the talent Bone Spear. On the other hand, Mortal Wound is a talent that is unique to Zul. It reduces healing by 75% for 4 seconds. You want to pick Mortal Wound when you're up against the targets with great support healing, such as Malfurion, since everyone has to be near each other to get the full effect of Tranquility, or Lieutenant Morales, whose single target healing becomes useless if your team is focusing the target affected by Mortal Wound. I'm Tempo Goku, and thanks for watching.
Let's talk about the current roster. KO, Goku, and Zix are all staying with the team. We are planning a big announcement that kind of got a little bit spoiled today, but Goku and Zix have both officially signed.